Hi, my name's Adrian Riches. I'm one of the teachers on applied psychology, and I'll be taking you through this presentation. So the presentation's purpose then is really to give you an introduction to the summer work. So you can look at this first picture here, and you can see maybe a cat to begin with, or perhaps you saw a mouse. The mouse is in the cat's nose there. Now, what that tells us, that image there, is quite a lot about psychology, which is that we're all presented with the same image, same situation, but we perceive it in different ways. So we might have seen the cat first, but we may have seen the mouse first. And also it tells us that we look at things in different ways. So you can see that we each have a different perception of things. The other thing to say about psychology then is that it's scientific. So if you've studied biology, that's probably the closest subject to psychology that you would come across. It's also an interesting subject because human beings are, by their nature, very, very interesting. And then the other thing to say about psychology is that it's useful. So psychology can help us to understand ourselves and also to help us to understand other people and offer treatments for things like phobias and anxiety disorders. So summer work then for applied psychology consists of 3 case studies. So the first one there, little Albert, he was taught to be frightened of white rats by those 2 psychologists there. And that studies helped us to understand how people become phobic. We've got this study here, which has been made into a film called the Stanford Prison Experiment. And this study then looked at how, if the roles that we're given can cause us to change our behaviour. So if you're given a role of guard, even if you're a very pleasant, kind person, you may then change your behaviour to being quite authoritarian and quite aggressive. So that tells us that the social roles that we're given tend to have a big impact upon our behaviour. The third one then is the case study of Phineas Gage. Now this poor chap was a railway worker, and he had a 3-foot-long iron bar blown up through the side of his cheek and out the top of his head. And afterwards, he survived, surprisingly. Afterwards, his personality changed quite dramatically, and that's able to tell us that certain parts of the brain then seem to be responsible for controlling our sort of personality and our impulses. So some work then is to have a look at those 3 case studies and to answer a number of sort of comprehension questions on them. So why do the summer work? Firstly, psychology may be subject to, so it introduces you to these 3 really important psychological approaches: the behavioural, social and biological. The other thing it does, it gives you experience of looking at 3 different research methods. So some of them are case studies, another one was a field study, and one of them was under controlled conditions in a laboratory. And then thirdly, it just gives you an opportunity to see how psychology can help us to explain a variety of different behaviours. So personality, phobias and aggression. Last thing then is just to tell you about a psychological phenomenon called the halo effect. Now this occurs when we meet someone for the first time and we have a very positive impression of them. That positive impression lasts for a long time after our initial meeting. So that's the idea that if you meet someone for the first time and they have a very positive effect on you, that effect is going to be quite long lasting. So say for example, I receive a piece of someone that looks a bit like this. That impression is not going to be a very positive one to begin with. However, if I receive a piece of work like this, really nicely presented, detailed, thorough, lots of care taken over it, that person that gave me that piece of work is going to be walking around for the first term with, in my eyes, a halo over their head because they're such a wonderful student from their first impression that I got of them. Okay, so that's important then for the summer work. The summer work is a first piece of work that I'm going to get from you, and that piece of work has the potential to give me a very positive impression of you. So last thing, we've got a webinar coming up. So please do come along to that and have a chat, and we really look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks a lot.